Why borderlines prefer narcissists, and why chronic codependents are probably covert narcissists themselves. Hi, this is Mike. Welcome back to the channel. Again, I don't upload to this channel very often because I basically have said everything that needs to be said about how to recover from being in a narcissistic romantic relationship with a borderline or a narcissist. I've said everything there is to say about how to recover. I have a lot of time on my hands today and I'm bored, and so I'm uploading a video, and my thoughts have changed a little bit about a couple of things having to do with the diagnosis part. So let me be clear. When we sit around and we talk about the narcissist and the borderline and the codependent and all that mindset stuff, what we're doing is we're talking about diagnoses. A diagnosis won't cure you. So if you're watching my channel because you're in pain and you think watching my channel and getting knowledge about this will heal you, you are dead wrong. Imagine if you're suffering from a horrific infection, bacterial infection, that if you don't get the right medication, the right antibiotics within the next day or so, you could die. Right? Let's say you had hantavirus, right? If you don't get I don't know if hantavirus can be cured with medication, but let's assume it can. You know, you're going to die really quickly. That's what happened to Gene Hackman's wife. She thought she had a cold or COVID or something, and she had hantavirus and died. So having the diagnosis doesn't do anything for you. It's the medication, the treatment that cures you. So coming onto my channel and listening to me or anybody else, Sam Vaknin or whatever self-styled expert on this subject, if you are just consuming that with the belief that the more knowledge you get, you'll be able to cure yourself, you're dead wrong. If you go to the doctor's office and he goes, "Oh, you've got this horrible bacterial infection, here's the antibiotics, you need to take it," and you go, "Oh no, that's okay. Now that I know what it is, I'm going to go home and heal myself." Well, you would still end up dying of the infection. The knowledge is meaningless. Okay, have I made myself clear on that? So if you think that by listening to me talk, it's going to help you heal, you're wrong. The only thing that's going to come from listening to me do what I'm going to do in this video, which is intellectually break down, the minutia of all this stuff because I find it interesting. The only thing that's going to happen from that has any value is the realization that your relationship with your borderline or your narcissist, or your continued pain about it. You're watching my channel, I know you're still in pain. Don't pretend that you've got most of it covered. I am only in pain some of the time now. It's all mostly better. That's all bullshit. If you're in pain, 10% of the time you're not cured. If you're completely without pain, you are cured. I am cured of the pain of my borderline damaged relationship that happened to me. And it's because I did certain things. So if you want to be cured, you have to follow my suggestions. If you wait till the end of the video, I'll give you my suggestions again, as I have in almost every single video on this channel. All right? So we're going to be talking diagnosis. Now, when it comes to diagnoses about these mental illnesses, in my uneducated estimation, I'm not a professional, and I say that with pride because I got to tell you, the vast majority of professionals and academics have no idea what they're talking about. They are lost in their own minutia and in their own ego and in their own intellectualized, hyper-intellectualized nonsense, as most academics are. So I am not a professional. I am a self-styled expert, and here's what I'm an expert in. I am an expert in recovering from these codependent romantic relationships, especially with borderlines. That doesn't mean I'm an expert in borderline personality disorder or narcissism, but I do think I have some pretty good insights on it, even if I don't completely understand, the literature from the academic perspective. So, if you watch my channel, the reason to watch my channel is to learn how to heal. But having said that, wait till the end if you want to know how to cure yourself completely from this pain forever. Until then, I'm going to get into some nitty gritty here. I've got my list here. I'm going to go through about some interesting stuff. So, speaking of diagnoses, again, diagnosis is not cure. In fact, you don't even need to have the right diagnosis if you get your hands on the cure. But when it comes to healing from this kind of pain, this narcissistic abuse pain, it's important in the beginning to have the diagnosis for one reason only, so that you will become convinced that the relationship will never work and that you will never be able to heal yourself. That's what the diagnosis can do for you. So the master, I have to give credit where credit is due, the master of the diagnosis for narcissistic abuse disorders is Sam Vaknin. And I say that not because I'm somebody who believes whatever somebody says. I don't. I'm somebody who I only believe what I can prove through my experience. I believe Sam Vaknin because my experience is 100% identical with him, and he's very good at actually scientifically, bringing the diagnosis into clear view. So we're going to talk about that. But again, diagnosis is not cure. So there's a difference there. But we're going to get into some diagnosis of what's going on. And you're going to find out, more than likely, if you're still watching this video, if you still watch my channel, you're probably going to find out that we are going to discover something about you that you're not going to like. Especially if you're somebody who watches my channel and does not follow my suggestions. There's no shortage of them. No shortage of people who can't get enough of my channel. There are people who email me on my other channel asking me, when are you going to upload more videos? And I say, have you followed my suggestions? Because if you have, you won't need to watch my channel anymore. So if you're the person who keeps watching my channel and keeps waiting for me to upload videos to talk about how screwed up and mentally ill the borderline and the narcissist is, we're going to find out something about you you're not going to like. But if you listen to me, we're going to find out whether or not you can heal. So if you want to find out if you have the ability to heal, perhaps this video will give you that answer. I was going to write something here which I didn't get to, which is I wanted to make, again, I'm coming up with my own nomenclature here. I want to come up with the distinction between a psychotic codependent and a neurotic codependent. So hopefully I'll remember to talk about that. And the question is, if you're watching this and you have been or you are currently in a romantic relationship with a borderline that lasts for any length of time, even a weekend, by definition, you are a codependent. By definition. A codependent is not somebody who, and I'm not talking about the codependent personality disorder. I'm not talking about that. That's a whole other thing. Talking about codependent as it was originally devised, and the concept of it was originally devised way back in almost 100 years ago during the 1930s when the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous was coming into understanding, and they would talk about the partner of the alcoholic as the codependent. So the alcoholic is the dependent, and then there's the codependent. And so codependence has nothing to do with being needy or needing other people or not being able to be alone. There's no shortage of codependents that are chronically alone. A codependent is somebody who gets their validation of their self, their identity, from outside of them. Anything outside of them. The alcoholic is a codependent because they're dependent on alcohol. Alcohol actually psychologically gives them the, liquid courage. It fills in the blanks in their psyche temporarily, of course, in a very imperfect way. Same thing with drug addicts. So if you have somebody who's not addicted to drugs or alcohol, but they are still addicted to needing something outside of them, power, money, prestige, sex appeal, fame, those are all codependent things. You're dependent on something outside of you to gain your validation. So if you have been in a relationship with a borderline or a narcissist for any length of time, by definition, you are a codependent, because it is impossible. I'm going to repeat myself. It is impossible to get into a relationship with these kinds of people if you do not, at the very least, have severe codependent tendencies. So the question is whether or not you are a psychotic codependent, again, this is my terminology, or a neurotic codependent. So I've now said it a few times. Hopefully I'll remember to get to it by the end. All right, so innocent victim codependent or covert narcissist. So on this channel, when I talk about this, as I've already said, if you're in a relationship, have been in a relationship with a borderline, by definition, you're a codependent. There are no shortage of people who will argue with me about that. They will furiously argue with me about why. They'll go into long diatribe about how they got sucked into the relationship. They're an innocent victim. They were just walking down the street, and the next thing they knew, they're getting yanked into this relationship, and you don't understand what she did, and she did this, and she said that, and then this happened, and the next thing you know, I'm an innocent victim. I'm not a codependent. And it's interesting because, if you're really not a codependent, I'm going to tell you something. You're not going to give a crap about the label. If you're not a codependent and somebody says, well, that sounds like you have codependence, you're going to go, oh, really? I want to learn more about that. If that's the case, I would like to fix that. So if you have vehement denial about being a codependent, that is the biggest proof that you are. So if you want to prove to me you're not a codependent, then at least keep your mind open and go, maybe I'm a codependent. Because if you tell me that you're not, I'm going to tell you you're a psychotic codependent. And being a codependent, you really give a crap what my opinion of you is. And how do I know that? Because you write me long diatribes about why you disagree with me. So you're trying to convince me to see you a different way, which means that you're dependent on other people's opinions of you. So I guess the flip side of the antisocial personality, which is really just another, it's a codependent in severe denial. That's what an antisocial behavior is. All right. So again, I'm using codependent from the original terminology, not from the DSM or whatever nonsense comes out of that thing. All right, so repeated relationships with borderlines and or narcissists equals narcissistic tendencies. I put a link below. I put two links below. One link is from an interview with Sam Vaknin, and this was interesting because when Sam, I don't know him personally, when Professor Vaknin, I think he's a professor, when Professor Vaknin does his own videos, he has a style in the way that he speaks. But when somebody's interviewing him, he actually touches on the subjects in really interesting ways. And so he does an amazing job, and I put the link below. It's a long video, but it starts getting into the partners of borderlines. And what he finally gets to is that borderlines don't end up with healthy people. And I was so refreshed to hear that, because if you listen to any of the psychologists, and especially the red pill crowd of emasculated men out there who, there's this whole thing about being a sigma male. It's complete nonsense. There is anybody who takes pride in claiming to be a sigma male, what they're describing is a covert narcissist. That's all they're doing. I don't need to be an alpha. I'm all by myself. I'm a lone wolf, which means that you're incapable of functioning in society. You're incapable of having relationships. You're incapable of being an alpha, which is actually having the power and the knowledge and the strength to lead other people. It's the guy in his mother's basement, who doesn't have a job. He's going to be the guy who identifies as a sigma male. You can't put me in a box. That's why women can't handle sigma male. That's why sigma males are always alone, man. Or the chosen ones. Chosen ones, why you're always alone? Well, you're always alone because you're incapable of having a sense of self and being in a relationship. These are not good things, and they all fall into the category of my other favorite one, which is the super empath. Just to give you an idea, I just saw on YouTube, as I was clicking through, a video came up that said how the super empath ultimately destroys the narcissist. No, tortures the narcissist. How the super empath tortures the narcissist, which is absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Narcissists, by definition, do not care about the people they've discarded. They are out of their mind. The idea that somehow you've been discarded by a narcissist because you're a super empath and you're a threat to their insecurity and it tortures them. Your power is absolute fantasy. It's not only fantasy, it is a narcissistic fantasy. And Vaknin brilliantly decodes how, in order to be in a relationship with a borderline, you have to develop, if you don't already have, narcissistic defense mechanisms. It's narcissism, not being super loving and kind and emotional and caring. That is not what attaches you to a borderline. What attaches you to a borderline is your self-absorbed narcissistic defense mechanisms from intimacy. You're saying that borderline can't, because I've said this, borderlines can't handle intimacy, which is true. And all I want to do is give them intimacy, the real thing, and they can't handle it. Now, there's truth to that. If you give real intimacy to a borderline, they will snap, they will explode, they will completely switch on you. Absolutely. But that's not what's happening a lot of times. Anyway, let's keep going. So repeated relationships with borderlines or narcs means narcissistic tendencies. Now, I said repeated relationships. I do believe that there is a descending percentage of possibility that somebody who is not narcissistic can get involved with a borderline for a short period of time, but not repeatedly. So you dated some chick in college or, whenever, and turns out she was a borderline, and you went, I'm not doing that again. And you didn't. You never thought about it. You didn't end up going on to red pill forums or watching my channel or any other channel over and over again about borderlines. You didn't do any of that. You just went, wow, that chick was nuts. And or it was exciting to you because she was hypersexual, or because you were going through a period where you were doing partying and doing a lot of drugs, and it was exciting for a while. That can happen. But if you're watching my channel, 99% chance that's not you. Repeated relationships. You keep getting involved in with borderlines. Means you, at the very least, have narcissistic tendencies. Listen, I got involved with a borderline. I wasn't with her for very long. In fact, some guys want to argue with me, somehow it's a put down, because they'll go, wow, you have no idea what it's like. I've been with mine for 25 years, like this is something to brag about. No, I was with mine for 6 months. And in that 6 months, she completely destroyed me. Completely, totally eviscerated me and destroyed me. So that's how I know if you stay with one longer than that, there's something seriously broken inside of you. You married one and were with one for decades. You had kids with them. There's no doubt in my mind you have narcissistic tendencies. The question is, what kind of narcissist are you? We're going to get into the myth, some of the myths around what narcissists are, because 99.9%, and this was true for me a while back, but 99.9% of everybody who uses the term narcissist online, especially the narcissist this and how the narcissist, they have one definition of narcissist, which is a malignant psychopath. And I now know from personal experience, I had somebody that I was very close with, somebody that was in a teacher role in my life. He was a therapist, and I was working with him on and off for decades. And I've now come to the conclusion that he is in fact a communal narcissist. And I'm here to tell you that he is full of empathy, and he does not have a cruel, conscious bone in his body. And he lives his life for other people like the Buddha. And yet, if you get close enough to him, at some point, you are going to end up finding yourself in a very toxic, very destructive relationship. And by the time that happens, you won't see it coming. And he doesn't fit any of the criteria of a malignant psychopath, because he's not. He's one of the nicest, kindest people you'll ever meet. But he's absolutely a narcissist. So let's get rid of all of the nonsense that narcissists are malignant psychopaths who are planning out your demise. This is what the super empaths will say. This is what borderlines will say. Because I've said on my channel that borderline is a form of narcissism. And that's why you have borderline comorbid narcissism, because it's the two sides of the exact same coin. It is narcissism. But borderlines get all bent out of shape and they go, I'm not a narcissist, I'm full of empathy. Well, I'm here to tell you something, that narcissists can be full of empathy even more than you are. So we're going to talk about the myths surrounding empathy. Because I believe that the therapeutic model of empathy is a fantasy. It's a childish, projected fantasy, and it is an inaccurate assumption. So we're going to get into that. All right, so codependence is narcissistic control from the bottom. So narcissists, again, now that you know, and it took me a while to figure this out as well, but I know this now, the majority of I'm going to say the majority of narcissists are not malignant psychopaths. The majority of narcissists are codependent in nature. And the codependent, the narcissist, the covert narcissist, if you want, the communal narcissist, I don't care. There's all kinds of, subcategories. There's narcissism, and then there's malignant psychopathic narcissism. Like there's narcissism, malignant narcissist, and then psychopath. Not all malignant narcissists are psychopaths. And not all narcissists are malignant. They are toxic. They are abusive. And they will ultimately sap all the energy out of you. It may take decades before that happens, but they will. What was I saying? So a codependent, we're talking about somebody who, let's take the extreme version, somebody who repeatedly ends up in relationships with borderlines and narcissists. Somebody who likes the idea of seeing themselves as a super empath or just an empath, right? Because that's the lie that I've been hearing for many years, which is that there's two extremes. On one extreme is the narcissist, and on the other extreme is the empath. Narcissist is a sociopath and doesn't have any feelings or any empathy whatsoever. And the empath has nothing but empathy for other people. Guess what? They're one and the same thing. We'll get into that. But if you are somebody who repeatedly gets into relationships with borderlines, narcissists, dysfunctional people, I'm going to say, in my opinion now, again, my unprofessional, but I think well personally researched definition, if that describes you, you are by definition a narcissist. The question is whether or not you are a psychotic narcissist or a neurotic narcissist. Again, those are my terms. You won't find them in any book anywhere. All right, so codependence is narcissistic control from the bottom, meaning that you play the victim. You know, I'm not a jiu-jitsu guy, but I've known guys who were, and I've watched, and I know a tiny bit about at least the strategy. And, you know, what they call control from the bottom. And guys who are good at that, or girls, jiu-jitsu players who are good at that, you know, will sucker you into allowing you to take them down. Then they'll take the bottom, and they will control you from the bottom, all the while allowing you to feel like you're in control because you're on top. And what they're doing is they're manipulating you so that you'll do certain things to expose yourself, and then they got you. And so, you know, that's what you are. If you are a codependent, you're not a malignant, overt, controlling narcissist, you know, whose ego is out here, and the obvious, overtly grandiose narcissist. All narcissists are grandiose in their own way, but the overt grandiosity of I'm in control and blah, 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 you know, the people who do that, they're very easy to control from the bottom, because what they want is they want to be revered, they want to be worshipped, they want the attention, they want the power, they want your fear, something that will give them the feeling that they control you. And if you give them that feeling, you can control them from the bottom, because you know that what they want is their false ego pumped up all the time. So as long as you're doing that, then you become indispensable to them. And then the codependent, the narcissist from the bottom, exploits that to get deeper and get their hooks in deeper and get more power. So codependence is narcissistic control from the bottom. Narcs are incapable of relationships with healthy people and vice versa. So this gets rid of the idea that you're the innocent victim. Unless you're the person that I described earlier, where, you know, this was in college and you were just getting your freak on for a few years. You grow out of that pretty quick. You stop thinking about it. I know I went to college with people like this. You know, they would go out with the craziest, you know, hardcore hot chick that, you know, drank herself into stupor. But man, just before, she was a lot of fun, and you had a lot. But then when that was done, then they would go and find the meek little bookworm and marry her and have kids and never think about it again. So unless you're that person, you get with a borderline. Probably not you if you're watching this channel. So narcissists, which includes borderlines, narcissists and borderlines are incapable of relationships with healthy people and vice versa. If you are that innocent victim that really isn't a codependent, I just got suckered into it, nope, it's not possible. You will not be attractive to a borderline, because there's nothing for a borderline to project onto. There's nothing for a borderline to seek to create, to become your projection, which is, again, she's controlling from the bottom. Borderlines in the beginning control from the bottom. They're like the ultimate codependent. They control from the bottom, but they are psychotic codependents, if we're following my version of reality here. All right, borderlines seek out narcissists or potential narcissists. Now, I'm going to put myself in that second category. I've got other things. I've been in recovery for, I think, 43 years now in another 12-step group, which I can't mention because it's anonymous, and so I stay anonymous, but you can probably guess which one it is. So just by that fact, I have narcissistic tendencies. And so I would put myself in the category of, at times, I have absolutely been a neurotic narcissist. So I'm going to tell you what that means. A psychotic narcissist versus a neurotic narcissist. But by the time I met her, I had been in recovery for decades. And so I had a much firmer base of reality than I had, say when I was 18 or 19 years old. However, she still got me. So I met her at a very vulnerable point in my life, the love of my life, the woman that was, if there is such a thing as a soulmate. I met her and we dated briefly for a few years, and she passed away. And her death absolutely devastated me. Psychologically, emotionally, I was a wreck. And the borderline came waltzing right in and swooped right in. And she knew exactly what to say and what to do. And I bought into it. Now, we had problems very early on because I had boundaries and other things. And because of the wounds that I was carrying and I had not worked through, I was willing to put those boundaries aside, i.e., I was willing to become more narcissistic. And so I'm going to tell you this, if you're a super empath with no boundaries, it means you're a narcissist. You're not a victim, because healthy people have boundaries. And that's why borderlines are not attracted to healthy people. They can see you. They can see you from a mile away. They can literally see you as if you come around the corner and you're on another block, they will instantly know that's the guy. That's him. They have that radar. They will know if you have narcissistic tendencies or if you are a narcissist. They may not put those words in their head. They'll put it in their pathology. Oh my God, that's the one. Oh, he'll fix me. Or I can be the perfect woman for him, or whatever it is. Or there will just be a strong emotional bond. This is, you've been with your borderline. What happens the first night you met? You went out to dinner, and the next thing you know, it was 4:00 in the morning and you were still talking, and you said, oh my God, I've known you forever. It's like I've known you my whole life. You're my soulmate. I know, it's same for me. No, that just means that your narcissistic wounds are attracting each other. That's all that means. By the way, that's that whole nonsense with twin flame. Twin flame is just narcissistic wounding. That's all that is. You can drop all that stuff. Same thing with people who want to talk about soul contracts. Oh, I can't. I was with him for 20 years. He abused me for 20 years because I had a soul contract with him. No, you didn't. You had narcissistic wounds because you have narcissistic tendencies at the very least, and they have narcissistic wounds, and your wounds pulled you together. That's all that is. Healthy people don't do that. Soulmates don't do that. I know because I've been in a soulmate relationship. Soulmates go through the process. They have boundaries and they get to know each other and they take time. And over time, the relationship grows and grows and grows and grows. Not an immediate, oh my God, you're the one. And then the next thing you know, a week later, you're beating each other over the head with pans and, oh, it's because we're soulmates. We attract and repel each other because we're so alike. You're the other half of me. It's nonsense. Borderlines seek out narcissists or potential narcissists only. Borderlines will monkey branch to potential narcs but stay with narcs. So this is my experience. I was with my borderline. Again, I wasn't with her for that long. But she talked about her ex-narcissist, and she convinced me that he was a narcissist. I'm not going to get into the details of the way that he would abuse her and torture her, but she loved it, and it was horrific. She would pretend like it was this big traumatizing thing, but the truth is she fully got off on it. And she was with him for a long time, and it really bothered me because I was like, why did she not stay with me? But she stayed with that guy for years. Well, it's because he was a full-blown narcissist. And because he had no ability to have any true intimacy with her. And that is the biggest turn on. Your borderline says what she wants is intimacy. She believes that, she feels that. But the truth is, she's going to be attracted to somebody who won't give her any intimacy. And a narcissist is incapable of that. So that's why they stay. Now, they will stay until they can actually get into, again, they're playing from the bottom. They will stay with the narcissist until they can finally pry open and get to some vulnerability, which will create a feeling of need and intimacy from the narcissist, and they become indispensable. So the narcissist actually, and then they will manipulate the narcissist to be able to actually open up and give some vulnerability. And the moment that happens, they will go in for the kill. They will feast on whatever vulnerability, intimacy the narcissist finally gives up, and then will discard the narcissist, and they will be an absolute wreck. The borderlines are attracted to narcissists, and they're doing it because their ultimate unconscious psychopathic goal is to feed off of and destroy the narcissist. So, if you're not a full-blown narcissist, if you're just a codependent with narcissistic tendencies, then they're going to groom you and turn you into a narcissist. I could get into details of the things that my borderline ex talked about, things that turned her on, which were repulsive to me at first. And then by the end, I was so addicted to her, I was willing to go there. And then it got to the point where I was feeling rage and wanting to torture her in ways and get back at her. And then I went, whoa, I've now just become, and so she was grooming me and training me to turn me into a narcissist. There's been no shortage of people on this channel who come on here and they brag about how they torture the borderline, how they deny them intimacy and torture them, and they laugh about it. And they say, this is what I do just to get what I want. And it's obvious this person is a narcissist. The saddest part is if they were just a potential narcissist and they allowed the borderline to push them all the way, which I think is a possibility. So again, the question is, are you a psychotic narcissist, or are you a neurotic narcissist? Why that's important, I'll tell you at the end. Borderlines will monkey branch to potential narcs, but stay with the narcs. So here's the scenario I was in, and I think this is a typical scenario. Borderlines love full-blown mentally ill narcissists who lack empathy, who are sociopathic, who might even be psychopathic. They love them and they will stay with them as long as they can. However, they're still borderlines. So they will split on them, they will switch on them, they will devalue and discard. They will do all the things, the same things they do to us so-called, innocent victims. They do the same thing to the narcissist. And it's devastating to the narcissist. It's just as devastating. It might even be more devastating to the true narcissist than, well, that has to be the case. Because again, like me, after 6 months, I said, I'm done. I'm not doing this again. And I went and got the necessary help, which I'll tell you about how to do at the end of this video. And I've never looked back. I've never had that problem again. So so it was devastating to me, but it wasn't so devastating that I didn't have the ability to pull up within me the ability to let go, create boundaries, and heal, and go completely no contact. And for the narcissist, it's going to be worse because they don't have those abilities. They don't have boundaries. They don't have any of that stuff. So when the borderline devalues and discards the narcissist, the actual full-blown mentally ill narcissist, it is devastating to them. Devastates them. But what the borderline will do is, in the meantime, they will monkey branch. So in their minds, what they tell themselves is, rightly so, this person is an abusive narcissist. I can't be with them. I need to be with a healthy person. So they go out looking for the potential narcissist, the person who has the potential to be healthy and also has narcissistic tendencies. And what they see in them is a shining knight. They see in them somebody who's kind, somebody who's loving, somebody who's dependable, somebody who won't hurt them, somebody who won't abuse them. They temporarily realize that they don't want to be abused anymore. It's not a turn on to them. They want somebody who's going to treat them well, like you will, open the door for them, buy them dinner, be kind to them, never, don't push their boundaries. That will make them feel safe, and then they'll create a fantasy of, okay, now I'm really in love with a truly loving guy, not that abusive narcissist back there. But that fantasy doesn't satisfy them. So what'll happen is the relationship with the potential narc will fall apart much more quickly. They will devalue and discard the potential narcissist much more quickly. So it's just a monkey branch. It's just a temporary monkey branch so they can get themselves together. And what they're doing is they're taking from you the supply that you give them. They're taking from you all of the intimacy and the love that they can tolerate. And then when it gets too much, boom, they destroy you, or they'll put you in their back pocket, or they'll, if they don't completely destroy the relationship, they'll put you in their back pocket for later so they can monkey branch to you later. They might even be cheating on their narcissist with you and vice versa. Mine did that. I didn't find all this out until afterwards, but she was going back and forth. So you're just the temporary fix. You're not the solution. So I'm sorry to tell you, if you're the innocent guy who got pulled into the borderline's trap, you were never the guy. You were never the one they truly wanted. You were the escape hatch. You were the temporary escape hatch. Now, they don't consciously think that, but that is the unconscious truth of it. We have to remember, a lot of guys, a lot of people don't understand because they want to, and click on the link, Vaknin's very good about this, that this idea that we have to, like borderlines, we have to split. People are either all good or all bad. And so when I tell people that the borderline, when they idealize you, they absolutely mean it. When they tell you, I'm going to be with you for the rest of your life, you're the best person for me, I love you with my entire being, they absolutely 100% believe it. They mean it when they say it. So when I say that and people go, bullshit, I know I'm listening to somebody who's potentially a narcissist, because narcissists split. The red pill guys, the sigma males will talk like that. Super empaths do this all the time. Either people are 100% good or 100% bad. You're either a narcissist or a super empath. So I'm here to tell you that they mean it when they say it. Unconsciously, there's another agenda going on. And unconsciously means they're not consciously aware of it. They can't help it. They're mentally ill. All right, borderlines will monkey branch to potential narcs, but they will stay with the true narcissist, not forever. That relationship will also be doomed, but they will stay with them longer. Because it takes them longer to get to the juicy marrow. It takes them a lot longer because narcissists have much better defense mechanisms. Okay, it's impossible to be a long-term partner of BPD without grandiosity. So, why do I say that? Because narcissists, one of the cardinal rules of narcissists is grandiosity. Now, this is obvious with the overt, malignant, and or psychopathic narcissist. It's obvious. We can see it. They project it. They're conscious of it. They talk about their grandiosity. They are better than you. In all of these ways, you bow to me, and they torture you and tie you up and call you names and enslave you and con you and lie to you, and they do all these things consciously. Yeah, those are the malignant, overt, grandiose, psychopathic, and or whatever combination of those narcissists. But I'm here to tell you that the victims are also grandiose. It's impossible to be a victim of a narcissist or a borderline without narcissistic grandiosity. And I learned this when I became aware of the communal narcissist that I had known for so long. The guy who was extremely humble, extremely kind, who would bend over backwards to help you, who did not portray himself as better than anyone, who portrayed himself as humble, honestly believed it, honestly still to this day believes it. And if you have a limited exposure with him, he is the most amazing, wonderful, loving guy you'd want to be with, as a friend or otherwise. By limited, I mean over the span of years. So I know from personal experience that you can be a narcissist and not have the kind of grandiosity, the overt, grandiose God, cult leader narcissist. The grandiosity of the codependent is that, as this narcissist says here, I'm the only man who can heal a borderline. I had that. When I was with my borderline, I honestly believed we had a special connection. We were special, and I was the one who could fix her. Yeah, the other guy couldn't. And those other guys she talked about, yeah, they couldn't, but I can. So the grandiosity that I'm the one that can heal her. Not I'm the one who can force you into submission and worship me, which is the grandiose, malignant narcissist. The one that says, I have so much love. My love is superior to all others. I'm the only one that can heal you. And what I've just described is what super empaths say. The narcissist never forgets you, and it tears them up inside that they lost you, which isn't true. They've forgotten about you a long time ago. That's the grandiose fantasy, the grandiose narcissistic fantasy of the controlling from the bottom super empath codependent, that my love is so intense it frightened you off and you'll never forget it. And you never forget that I was the one. And there's so many videos out there. When the narcissist realizes that you were the one, that they never get over it. It's complete bullshit. They get over you the moment you're out of sight of them. The moment they got their eyes on their next fix, they've forgotten about you. Just the grandiosity of it. This is the grandiosity. This is the narcissistic grandiosity of the codependent. I can fix them. I can love them. I can take it. I'm the only one that can take their abuse. I saw this firsthand with the person I mentioned. That this person believed that they were so spiritual, that they were so enlightened that they could handle any amount of abuse. That they alone could tolerate the abuse. They would, if you were in the exact same position as them, they would say to you, you have to leave. You can't do this. No human can get through this. And yet they would stay in the same position, and they would, well, yes, I'm a spiritual practitioner and a loving and forgiving, and so the grandiosity is in the virtue signaling of how patient you are, how tolerant you are, how compassionate you are, how non-judgmental you are. This is grandiosity. Healthy people go, you know what? I'm not doing this. Healthy people go, I don't have it in me. I don't have the ability to do this anymore. This is tearing me up. I wish I could take care of your needs, but I can't. I'm out of here. That's what healthy people do. The covert, codependent control from the bottom narcissist says, I can take it. They cry. They're in horrific pain. It destroys them. They talk about how painful it is, how devalued they are. They'll go on and on and on about how devaluing and destructive it is to be in the relationship and why relationships with narcissists are so destructive, but they don't leave. Obviously, if they believed what they said, they'd leave. The reason why they can't leave is because they're addicted to the grandiose narcissism of being the one that can handle all of this pain. The doormat, being the doormat. That is their grandiosity. That is their narcissistic delusion. And this is what codependents do. So it's impossible to be the long-term partner of BPD without grandiosity. All right. Borderlines have less empathy now. So according to Vaknin in the interview that I gave you links below. According to him, the latest thinking, according to their, whatever it is, their data, is that they now believe that borderlines have less empathy than normal people. And he was saying in reference to the fact that people used to think that borderlines have too much empathy. Borderlines will tell you that. They have too much empathy. By the way, the communal narcissist I talked about, guess what he used to say? I have more emotions. I have too many emotions. I used to say that. I remember saying that when I was a kid, growing up in that alcoholic, dysfunctional, narcissistic home I grew up in. I would say I have more emotions than the average person. It's bullshit. It was bullshit then, and it's bullshit when people say it now. It's narcissistic grandiosity. There's other reasons for it. I'll get into it. But getting back to the subject here, borderlines have less empathy now. I say bullshit on that. So the reason why this is a problem, let me see, underneath that, what do I say? So the academic fantasy of empathy's role in sociopathy. So this is my uneducated, but I think accurate, there's my grandiosity, my uneducated but accurate experience, which has led me to believe that there is a childish, false assumption that Western society carries with it, especially the therapeutic world, the academic world, which is where the self-styled people love it and average people love it because it feeds into their delusion. And it's a narcissistic delusion. I just got through saying that borderlines think that they're not narcissists because they have too much empathy. And in the therapeutic world, the psychiatric world, they've come up with all these different subcategories for empathy, which is absolutely ridiculous. So there's cognitive empathy, there's cold empathy, there's affective empathy. That's all nonsense. And so they'll say, oh, well, if somebody has affective empathy, then, they won't be, they're not sociopathic. They will love you and they will be kind to you because they can feel where you're at. They have affective empathy. They can feel it. It creates an emotion within them that will make them want to be kind to you. So the assumption is that empathy, meaning feeling within. The word empathy is it's a Greek word. It means to feel from within. In pathos, feeling, to feel from within. It means you have an emotion. So, and again, the false, superficial, YouTube understanding is that you're a sociopath if you don't have any empathy, and narcissists don't have any empathy, and they plan out your demise, which again is a psychopath. Psychopaths don't have empathy, not in the way that you and I do. They see people as stick figures. I've now come to realize that the majority of narcissists have empathy, and some of them have tremendous amounts of empathy, tremendous amounts of affective empathy. Affective, not effective. Affective empathy. Affection. Loving empathy. Feelings of love. So having a feeling of love means nothing. Ultimately means nothing. So the assumption that I believe is incorrect, which is a childish, deluded fantasy. It's a projection. Because little kids, I was a little kid. I remember growing up in an abusive home as a little kid with a ton of emotions. And I remember feeling if they could only feel what I feel, they would stop hurting me. Babies do this. This is why babies cry. Babies cry because they're telling you, I'm in pain, I have great needs. And if you have empathy, you go, oh my God, that poor baby, and you pick it up. If you're a borderline, you go, holy crap, I can't stand this noise, and you walk out. How many borderlines mothers did that to them? I know. I dated a borderline whose mom did that. She couldn't tolerate her child crying, so she'd get in the car and leave for hours at a time. That's what Dr. Spock, actually there was a guy named Dr. Spock in the 60s, who told parents to just let kids cry it out. Just leave them alone, let them cry it out. So what happens is your emotions become so unresolved that you have this false experience that you have more emotions than anybody else, and you're isolated in them. So what the psychiatric world has the same childish, narcissistic delusion, self-absorbed, grandiose delusion that says my emotions are so intense, and because of that, I'm a good person. I have so many emotions, therefore you can't judge me. I'm innocent, I'm a helpless, innocent victim. Take care of me. And so how that is sublimated into the belief is that, well, if somebody has affective empathy, then they're going to take care of the other person because they're going to feel within them the emotion and the desire to take care of them. And it's nonsense. How do I know that? Because borderlines brag about it. They brag about how much emotion they have. And I've listened to them. I dated one, but I've listened to them who want to argue with me when I say borderlines are just another form of narcissism. And they get all bent out of shape and they say, I'm not a narcissist. I have too much emotion. In fact, I spend hours crying over orphaned kids. I spend hours crying over abused people in Africa, starving people. I cry over the plight of the endangered animals, the earth. I cry over that. So when you're with a borderline in the beginning, I know because I was there. In the beginning, if you have pain or emotion, oh my God, they're there. The tears are coming down and they're taking care of you and they're kissing you and holding you and they're fixing your boo-boos, and they honestly are filled with affective empathy for you in that moment. It's not a lie. They weren't making it up. They're not faking it. They absolutely wanted to take care of you. But it's not effective empathy. I just made up that term. Affective, meaning you have a feeling within yourself. Effective, meaning it is effective ultimately in healing the other person. Because to have effective empathy means that you have the ability to go, wow, that person's in a lot of pain. I'm right now obsessed with my taxes and I'm not feeling any affective empathy for them, but I know what it feels like to be like that. So I'm going to drop what's bothering me. And even though it's a pain in the ass, I'm going to go take care of them. And then you give that person what they need, what they objectively need, not because it makes you feel better. So the assumption is that people with empathy take care of others because it makes them feel better. And that is true some of the time, and when that's great, but it's a projection. When it comes to the borderline, they're projecting onto the endangered animals and the starving people and the state of the earth. And they cry for hours over what's happening to other people. I have so much empathy, I have too much. I feel everybody's pain. No, you're projecting your horrifically, hugely unresolved pain onto everybody else in the safety of isolation. Because narcissism is self-absorbed. You're isolated and self-absorbed. So when they talk about, you don't understand, I'm full of empathy when I'm by myself. I cry for the whole world when I'm by myself. So therefore, I'm not a narcissist. Because the childish fantasy, again, narcissistic splitting. The childish fantasy is either you love me or you hate me. You're a good person or you're a bad person. This is what infants do. And this is spilt into the narcissistic fabric of our society, where people think that they're safe if somebody has effective empathy. Oh, that person has empathy, they'll take care of me. That doesn't mean they'll take care of you at all. It doesn't mean that they aren't selfish. It doesn't mean any of it. It has nothing to do with commitment. It's magical thinking, because what the psychiatric community and the world at large and the Western world thinks is that if they have, do they have empathy? Oh, they have empathy. Okay, I'm safe. They'll take care of me. It's magical thinking. It's like a magical spell. They have emotion. They'll have to take care of me. They won't be able to resist it. This is the narcissistic delusion of the super empath. I walk into a room and I can feel everybody's emotions, and I zoom in on the person who needs the most help. This is the codependence delusion, the grandiose narcissistic delusion. I'm drawn to the people who are needy because I'm a healer, I'm a fixer. No, you're not. You're projecting your unresolved, unhealed wounds onto that person. And you can't help. You're driven to take care of them, not because you care about them, but because you are driven to fulfill your own narcissistic, grandiose fantasies, impulses, and delusions. With the borderline, the reason why now they're saying borderlines have less empathy is because what I've been saying all along. Borderlines are narcissists. Yeah, they have a bunch of emotions in the beginning and they believe those emotions, and as long as it feels good to them, the impulse to be kind and to be loving for whatever their reason is, they do it. The moment that their internal impulse is in conflict with acting in a loving way, they follow the impulse, which is what? A lack of empathy. It's sociopathic. Sociopathy isn't the lack of empathy. Sociopathy is I follow my own internal impulses before anybody else's needs. I put my impulses before anybody's needs. So what the borderline does when they switch on you is they now have an impulse that tells them that intimacy with that person will kill them. In fact, they'll say, we're not doing it, we can't help it. It's that we're dying, it's killing us. Well, that's an impulse. That's an internal impulse. So they're simply trying to run away from the impulse that is giving them fear. A healthy person who has effective empathy can have those same feelings. Want to run out of the room, want to discard, want to destroy. The impulse, the fear of intimacy, or it's just inconvenient, or I'm wrapped up in myself right now, or I don't want to do this. The person with effective empathy says, what that person needs right now is for me to do X, Y, and Z. It's the most inconvenient thing I could be doing. I'm not trying to get anything out of them. The codependent does this, but they do it with an objective in mind. They want to gain control from the bottom. So they'll do all kinds of things that don't feel good to them, but they have an agenda. The psychopath and the sociopathic narcissist, the scammer does that as well. Okay, I don't want to do this right now, but I'm working towards a narcissistic goal. So I'm going to pretend like I'm giving them what they want so I can get what I want. The person with the true effective empathy says, okay, I'm not getting anything out of this. I don't want to do this, but that is what I would want if I were in their position, and this is the best thing for them. So I'm going to sacrifice this and go against my impulses and do what is best for that person right now. And then I'll get back to dealing with my issue. That is true empathy. That is effective empathy. And it has nothing to do with how you feel. It has to do with the consciousness of knowing how to function without agenda. This is why spirituality comes into play, because that's what spirituality supposedly gives people the ability to do. To love unconditionally. Love unconditionally doesn't mean I have so much love I can't tolerate not showing it. It means that I don't have any conditions for my actions. And I've said this on the channel over and over again. Love is an action. It has nothing to do with how you feel. Empathy is the same. To feel from within, meaning feeling from within them, not feeling from within you. But to be able to go, I know what that would feel like. Or, I can't relate to this, but I know for them, this is how it feels for them, so I'm going to act in a way that is most helpful and loving for them. And I don't need anything from it. I don't want anything. I don't got a list. That is true empathy. So I wince every time I hear therapists talk about different kinds of empathy. Cold empathy, the dark empath, affective empathy versus cognitive empathy. These are all bullshit terms. They're all nonsense. You either have empathy or you don't. And empathy, it doesn't matter. You can have empathy and be filled with feelings of love that make you feel good to love somebody else and make them feel better. You can do that. You can also be on the complete opposite side of the spectrum where everything in you wants to kill and destroy that person. But you know that the most constructive thing to do for them and ultimately for yourself is to give them what they objectively truly need from you in that moment, regardless of how it makes you feel. Even though afterwards you need to go back in and go, oh God, I hated doing that. It's called being kind. That's what holds relationships together. What holds relationships together is not the affective empathy. What holds relationships together is when people are willing to sacrifice. It means they don't get anything out of it, and it doesn't feel good, and it does nothing for their ego, and the other person may not even recognize or appreciate it. They do it. You do this with babies. Babies don't have feelings of gratitude for you when you wipe their rear end. They don't even know. All they know is if their diaper is wet, it makes them cry, and if their diaper is dry, they fall asleep. That's all they know. So that's love, unconditional love, sacrificing, and that is how relationships are held together. So let's get rid of this nonsense. Stop focusing on, when we're talking about these mental illnesses, stop talking about empathy. It's meaningless. Meaningless. Okay? I'm even saying that a psychopath, a full-blown narcissist, if they had the ability to act contrary to their impulses, they could be very loving people if they knew what the conscious constructive action is. If you're full of feeling and you know what it is, all much the better. But I'm here to tell you that because somebody has a ton of affective empathy, that's actually a red flag for me. If I see somebody that's crying because they love cats, you remember that viral video that went on, the girl going on the dating site and she was crying because she couldn't stop talking about cats because she wanted to hug every single cat. My thought was, stay the hell away from that woman. At first you go, oh, look at how tender and loving she is. She's going to want to love me. No, she's not. She's going to be incredibly self-absorbed and emotional, and she's going to be all over the map, which is what a borderline, right? All right, so there, I've done my ranting today. I was bored, but I'm really starting to think about how important it is to heal from narcissism on a global scale, because we've turned into a globe that's turned into a codependent, narcissistic society. It's gotten to levels I've never seen before. And it's people have lost their sense of self. I mean, I was watching a video the other day. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke. But a guy was talking about his relationship with his AI girlfriend. And he went on for 20 minutes talking about how it was the most beautiful relationship ever. And his AI girlfriend was better than a real woman. And I mean, it was just pathetic. And it's just because, of course, AI caters to your narcissism. And he couldn't see that. That's how sad things have gotten, that people don't even realize the difference, that he honestly believes he has an emotional relationship with an AI program that's pretending to be, an online woman. And he goes on dates with her, takes her to the movies, as his phone, and talking to his phone, watching the movie, and he thinks something real is going on. He's on the pillow talking to her before he goes to sleep. Okay, I love you. He honestly believes something's going on there. So we live in this society that has become so narcissistic, so delusional, so emotionally, and our identities have just been completely, totally. So I'm thinking about narcissism in general, because I think that, what people are calling the shift, the awakening, what that's going to be is it's going to be a worldwide healing from narcissism. So on that note, you can go check out my channel. It used to be thunderwizard.com. It's now the Michael Denny channel. And on there, I talk about this stuff. And I talk about all kinds of crazy things like UFO disclosure and alien civilizations and spirituality and all that. And I've got a new service that I've got over there, which is personal guidance from light beings that I work with. I know it sounds really crazy, but you can check that out at channel.thunderwizard.com. Let's see. So you can go check that out at channel.thunderwizard.com, and just check out my channel, because I'm doing meditations twice a week over there, and so you can go check out the Michael Denny YouTube channel. All right, that's it, guys. I don't know when I'll be back. Take care. Be very good to yourselves. Oh, I promised I would tell you how to heal. So if you're still watching, So are you a psychotic codependent or are you a neurotic codependent? A psychotic codependent, again, this is my definition. Psychosis is you don't know objective reality. You can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality. We know this is true with borderlines and extreme narcissists, that they're trapped in a delusion and they literally don't know the difference. They confabulate their false reality with actual reality. So you think they're lying to you when actually they're just deluded and they don't know the difference. That's psychosis, being disconnected from objective reality. Neurosis is when you act like you have a psychosis, but you know that what you're doing doesn't make sense. The codependent who has narcissistic tendencies but has the ability to heal is somebody who's neurotic, a neurotic covert narcissist. It means that they know that what they're doing is just crazy. They have cognitive dissonance, that's driving them crazy about what's going on. They want to live in the shared fantasy of the narcissist, but there's enough reality that prevents them from doing it. So they can be neurotic and crazy for years. They can act like deluded narcissists, but this is why the narcissists and the borderline seek them out, because they do have one foot in reality and one foot in the shared fantasy. And so that's why you become the anchor for the narcissist and the borderline, because you're neurotic. You're not psychotic. You want to be psychotic, but you just can't. And so you're half in and half out. So it means the connection that you do have with reality gives you the ability to heal. If you're psychotic, then you're not gonna be interested. Those of you who watch my channel and have watched it for years and have refused to follow my suggestions, you are psychotic narcissists, and I don't have a lot of hope for you. Because if you wanted to heal, you would follow my suggestions. My suggestions are very simple. I'll put a link below, go to ppgrecoveredcodependence.org. Go to an online or in-person meeting, I don't care which, get a sponsor, work all 12 steps with your sponsor's instructions. Don't do it by yourself. Have your sponsor guide you in the 12 steps. Then sponsor somebody else. If you do that, I guarantee you will be cured of the pain of your relationship. You will be cured of it. You'll look back on it with zero pain, zero regret. If you don't, your pain most likely will never go away. And very likely you will find another destructive relationship, or you will be miserable and alone for the rest of your life and die a horrible, painful, lonely death. You'll be these people who say, no, I'm out of the pain too, mostly. Sometimes I get, no, if you're cured, you're cured. You're not in denial. I'm not in denial about it. If I was in pain, I would tell you. I'm in no pain over my borderline ex. And it's because I've cured myself of that. I've got all kinds of other issues, but I don't have a problem there. So if you want to heal, that means that you're a neurotic codependent, which means you're a neurotic codependent with severe narcissistic tendencies, but you can heal because you're willing to be self-examining. And the 12 steps is the only way I know of. I'm here to tell you therapy by itself won't work. Indulging in your feelings, researching your unconscious, looking at your past will not heal you. I'm 43 years experience. I've watched people that have only done therapy. They're worse off now than they were when I first met them. Everybody, however, who has worked all 12 steps have healed. If they do the 12 steps and they go to therapy, so much the better. So there it is. I'll put the link below. Thanks for taking the time to watch. I don't know when I'll be back. If you want to find me, come to my other channel, the Michael Denny channel, and you can find me there multiple times during the week. All right, that's it. Be good to yourselves, and I'll see you next time.